Hey, how's it going everybody? Welcome back to Aussie Fish Keeping. So in today's video, we're going to be taking a look at 5 of the best no soil aquarium plants. So all 5 of these species are some of the best beginner plants that you can get. They're absolutely so easy to care for. Obviously they don't need any form of soil or substrate to grow, so they don't need any crazy conditions for them to thrive well in your aquarium. And yeah, all 5 species I've kept, I keep them at the moment, and I don't keep any of them in soil. So yeah, I guess without any further ado, let's just jump straight into today's video with the first plant on our list. So as for plant number 1, this probably isn't going to come as a surprise to anyone. We have Anubias. So Anubias is probably one of the most commonly kept no soil aquarium plants, or even just most commonly kept aquarium plants full stop. It is very popular. There's so many different varieties of it, and all of them don't need substrate to grow. So the reason this stuff doesn't need substrate is because it's actually a rhizomial plant, and rhizomial plants obviously don't have like a root ball that needs to be in some sort of substrate to collect nutrients. These guys just have a rhizome, which is basically like a bulb, I believe, and yeah, they just grow their leaves and their roots from that. And that rhizome can be attached to hardscapes in your aquarium, so things like rocks, wood. It can also just be, left on the top of your substrate. And apparently it can be left floating as well, because I've had an Anubias floating in this aquarium. I don't know where it's gone now, but it was definitely floating in there. I'll have to find it and I'll put up some footage of that. But yeah, I've had that Anubias floating in there for months now, and it's been growing really well. It's got these really long roots on it now. So yeah, it can be attached to hardscape with glue, it can be left floating in your aquarium, or it can just be left on your substrate. So one of the reasons I love Anubias so much is because it's actually a low light aquarium plant, and keeping plants in lower lighting conditions is so much easier in my opinion. So if you have a really intense aquarium light or a really long light cycle, you do run the risk of having algae outbreaks in your aquarium. And because these Anubias don't need a high light, they can just be kept in pretty much any lighting condition and they will thrive. So that really does lower the risk of any algae outbreaks from occurring in your aquarium. And it means your Anubias isn't going to suffer if you have it in a lower light aquarium as well. Another great thing about Anubias is it can actually be kept with a variety of different aquarium fish. So it's very hardy and it's got these super thick, waxy leaves. And yeah, because of that, it can be kept with those really notorious plant eaters. So things like African cichlids, massive South American fish, massive Australian fish, goldfish, any of those sort of plant eating fish, or just fish you wouldn't keep plants with in general. And another reason it can actually be kept with a variety of aquarium fish is because there's so many different species, and there's ones that get really big, which are obviously great for those monster sized fish. There's sort of medium-sized ones, I guess, which are great for goldfish, African cichlids, and then you've got all those nano varieties and just, I guess, average-sized varieties, which are just super versatile and can be kept in pretty much any aquarium. As for water parameters for this stuff, I keep it unheated, so the water in my aquariums is usually between 18 to 22 degrees Celsius. It really does depend. It's in a garage here, so obviously garages get really hot. I actually don't know why they do, but my garage is like 10 times hotter than the rest of my house, and it is summer at the moment, so these aquariums are pretty warm at the moment. But it does get pretty cold here in winter, and the Anubias does still thrive, so it really is very hardy. But as for water parameters, I'd recommend a temperature anywhere between 22 to 28 degrees Celsius, which is about 72 to 82 degrees Fahrenheit. And a pH anywhere between 6 to 8. It is super hardy, it's not fickle whatsoever. It doesn't need any like crazy hard to achieve water parameters. In fact, it doesn't actually even need water to grow in at all. I think out in the wild, this stuff like Bucephalandra actually grows like on the banks of creeks, so it's not even fully submerged anyway. I could be completely wrong, but I'm pretty sure that is correct. But yeah, with that being said, Anubias of any variety is definitely a great no-soil aquarium plant that you can get for your aquarium. Moving on to the next species of plant on our list, we actually have a moss. This is one I've been talking about a bunch lately on my channel, and I still can't correctly pronounce it, but we have Susswassertang. So I think it is Susswassertang or Susswassertang. Again, I'm not really sure. I've had a bunch of really cool people commenting how to actually say it in the comments, but yeah, I don't know. But yeah, this stuff is an absolutely awesome aquarium plant. I absolutely love it. I grow it in pretty much all of my aquariums now. It is a freshwater moss, so some of the more common freshwater mosses are things like Java moss, This stuff is, I mean, it is pretty common now, but it's a little bit harder to find than just your regular Java moss. Although I find it's a lot easier to keep than Java moss, so it grows in low light as well, just like the Anubias, which means there's really a lower chance of any algae outbreaks in your aquarium. It also grows super fast, so you can see I've got these 2 tanks behind me here just littered with it all over the substrate layer. And it sort of just grows over the top of the substrate. It doesn't actually have any roots that root into any substrate. And usually if you have a big clump of this stuff in your aquarium and it starts expanding, it will start to stick to hardscapes in your aquarium. So it has these really small hook-like roots that hook onto things in your aquarium, and that just stops it from being, you know, pushed around by the flow. This one is another one that doesn't need to be heated. It can be kept in any sort of unheated water parameters. Although again, I'd recommend a temperature anywhere between 22 to 28 degrees Celsius, which is about 72 to 82 degrees Fahrenheit, and a pH anywhere between 6 to 7.5. This one's actually a great plant to grow if you're wanting to grow plants for profit as well. So Susswassertang, you could probably sell it for, you know, anywhere between 5 to 10 bucks just for a good decent size. And people are always pretty much buying it. I've sold some of this stuff a few times and yeah, people absolutely love it. I absolutely love it. I'd buy heaps more if I could, but I'm running out of tank space. But yeah, with that being said, another great no soil aquarium plant has definitely got to be Susswassertang. Moving on to the next species of plant on our list, we have another one that I absolutely rave about all the time. We have Guppy Grass. So I'm not gonna lie, I don't really know what sort of plant Guppy Grass is. I'd say it's like a stem plant. It's not a moss, it's not a rhizomial plant, it just sort of chills in your water column. Now I have noticed this stuff does root down to the substrate if you keep it in an aquarium with substrate, but it definitely doesn't need that substrate to grow well. So I have it in this aquarium and you may be able to see, oh probably not, but it is starting to root down into the little gravel layer I have at the bottom there. But I've also got it outdoors in tubs with no gravel or substrate. I've got it on my top rack with really thin layers of substrate and it does just grow perfectly fine. It doesn't need that substrate whatsoever. I think it roots into the substrate just more so to hold itself in place and so it doesn't get smashed around your aquarium by the flow. So Guppy Grass is an absolutely perfect aquarium plant if you want to keep things like, I mean guppies obviously, endlers, cherry shrimp, any sort of live bearer or colony breeder like the cherry shrimp, even pygmy corridors, things like that. It's absolutely great for those sorts of fish, so it's a great spawning medium. It helps trigger your fish into breeding, and it also helps your fry stay away from the parents and raise up safely in your aquarium. As for water parameters for this stuff, again, it doesn't need a heater, but I would definitely recommend keeping it in heated water, so a temperature anywhere between 22 to 28 degrees Celsius, which is about 72 to 82 degrees Fahrenheit, and a pH anywhere between 6 to 8. So it actually does do really well in those higher pHs as well, which is absolutely perfect because your live bearers like your guppies, endlers, all prefer that higher pH. So yeah, with that said, Guppy Grass is another great no soil aquarium plant, and I would definitely recommend it for your aquarium. Moving on to the next species of plant on our list, we have another rhizomial plant, one that again I talk about quite a bit in my plant related videos. We have Bolbitis. So if you've ever watched any of my other videos before, you'll know that Bolbitis is probably one of my favorite plants. I think it's an absolutely awesome looking plant. It's like a mix between Java fern, Anubias, and just like a regular terrestrial fern. It's an absolutely awesome plant. It's one of the coolest looking plants in my opinion. And it's actually pretty easy to grow. So it is a rhizomial plant, like I mentioned, exactly like Anubias. So it grows the same. It can be stuck onto hardscape. It can just be left in your aquarium. I've just left this piece sort of just chilling there. I think it has like attached itself to the sponge filter now, which might be a little bit annoying, but we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. So there's really not much to say about this stuff that's different than Anubias. It's basically the same plant. It can go in lower lighting conditions, which again is great for minimizing the algae growth. It can go with pretty much any sort of aquarium fish. It is a little bit less hardy than the Anubias, so its leaves aren't as thick, which means you can't keep it with, you know, those massive fish or African cichlids. But I'd say it'd be able to go with goldfish. I've never personally kept it with goldfish, but I do think it would be safe to do so. As for water parameters for this stuff, again a temperature anywhere between 22 to 28 degrees Celsius, which is about 72 to 82 degrees Fahrenheit, and a pH anywhere between 6.5 to 7.5. But yeah, like I said, it's really not much different than Anubias. It's another great no substrate aquarium plant, and if you can, I definitely recommend getting some. And then moving on to the final plant on our list, we have one that, again, I talk about a lot. I talk about all these plants a lot, if I'm being honest. We have another one of my favorites, probably a close second actually. We have Foxtail. So Foxtail is probably one of the first aquarium plants I really started growing well. And it sort of got me into, you know, keeping all these other cool aquarium plants. Before that, I'd just keep things like Ludwigia, Blue Stricta, Elodia, just those like really basic plants. This is another one like the Guppy Grass. I'm actually not sure whatsoever what sort of plant it is. I think it's very similar to hornwort. It may be the exact same thing, except I actually believe someone commented on my video once the difference between them. It's just I sort of forgot. But yeah, Foxtail is a great aquarium plant. You can see it behind me here. It's sort of like a floating plant, except it doesn't float on the top of your water. It flows just beneath the surface, and it never really grows out of your aquarium. It sort of just grows, and as it grows, it sort of just pushes down throughout your water column. And because it floats, it actually serves a really important purpose in a lot of aquariums and even outdoor setups. So when you have a floating plant like this Foxtail here, it grows and covers the top of your aquarium, and that really helps minimize the amount of light that gets through to the bottom of your aquarium. So I mean, this can be a benefit. It can also be something that you don't want depending on what sort of aquarium you're going for. But for me, these sort of jungle aquariums where I just throw a bunch of plants in, it actually works really well. Particularly if you want to keep plants like the Susswassertang, the Bolbitis, the Anubias, just because those plants do prefer the lower light, whereas the Foxtail prefers the higher light. So you could imagine if you have an Anubias down here, which I actually do, it actually grows really well in the lower lighting conditions. And the Foxtail up the top is getting all that light from the aquarium light, and it's using that. So it really just creates the perfect environment for both plants to grow in. And like I mentioned, this is very useful in outdoor ponds. So outdoors, a lot of the times you get breakouts in things like green water, and that's because the sun exposure is just, there's so much sun. And pretty much throughout all the day, obviously your outdoor pond is going to be getting sunlight on it. So if you have the Foxtail, it really does sort of restrict the amount of sunlight that gets through, and that means there's a lower chance of you getting green water. So yeah, it's an absolutely great aquarium plant to use in that way. As for water parameters for this stuff, again, a temperature anywhere between 22 to 28 degrees Celsius, which is about 72 to 82 degrees Fahrenheit, and a pH anywhere between 6.5 to 8. This is another great plant to keep with pretty much any aquarium fish as well. It's great for the live bearers, it's great for your cherry shrimp, particularly great for the live bearers because the live bearer fry generally stick around the top of your aquarium, and this stuff grows around the top of your aquarium. So it does just give them a nice little refuge and shelter to hide away from the parents. But yeah, with that said, Foxtail is another great no-soil aquarium plant, and I would highly recommend it. So that is actually going to bring us to the end of today's video. I hope you all enjoyed, and I hope this video helps a few of you guys out. If you did enjoy today's video and you haven't done so already, please make sure to go down and subscribe. And while you're down there, smash the like button and comment your thoughts on today's video. I always love going down there and reading them all, and I try to reply back to as many comments as I can. Also, if you haven't done so already, make sure to go check out my website, aussiefishkeeping.com. We recently got a bunch of cool fish up there, so we've got some red-nosed algae eating shrimp, platinum neon tetras, cardinal tetras, delicate blue eyes, pygmy blue eyes, and a bunch of Tyranda goldfish. So yeah, with that said, I hope you all enjoyed. Thank you all so much for sticking around to the end, and I'll see you all in that next video.